Andrew Liu.
Now imagine this. Imagine waking up in a different country every few years, not knowing the language, the culture, or even where to find the nearest grocery store. Sounds like an adventure, right? Well, that was my life growing up. And today, I would like to share with you how those experiences taught me the essence of self-leadership, resilience, and the ability to find your voice in new contexts. My father was a diplomat, so growing up, moving around was always part of the package. Every 6 years, I would bounce between the States and Taiwan, and often not even in the same cities. It was not just about changing homes, but it was about reinventing myself each time. Being the perpetual new kid meant I was always the outsider. But I was lucky. With each stop, I was still able to connect with my environment, and I learned at a very young age to be happy, even when I had no idea what I was doing. Cutting through all this craziness was one constant: my life as a young musician. I was a violinist and fortunate to be very good at it. I traveled worldwide as a soloist in small ensembles and huge orchestras. This career gave me a sense of confidence and authority, but also set the stage for a first realization that leadership extends beyond taking care of yourself, but extends to inspiring and uplifting those around you. By the time I got to college, my battery as a musician had long been depleted. I was ready for a fresh start in an environment that would honestly excite me again. So, what did I do? I moved to Belgium to continue my studies. Random? I know. But I wanted to see Europe for the first time and explore a different part of the world. I was ready for a fresh start, and it was incredibly difficult. Without a doubt, it's like if you grew up here and you moved to Asia to finish your studies. Again, I'm a bit crazy. So, even though as a student it was incredibly difficult to adapt to a new culture, I still found some success here. I was in KU Leuven, and I founded the TED Talks organization at KU Leuven. Withstanding COVID and language barriers, we were able to do something incredibly entrepreneurial. What all of these experiences taught me is that you can believe you've made it, believe you're a polished leader, but at the end of the day, there will always be another challenge to strike you back down. And it is really up to yourself to drag yourself through the mud and to find your unique voice in your unique context. As John Maxwell famously stated, the pessimist complains about the wind, the optimist expects it to change, and the leader adjusts the sails. And this brings me to my next story, my traineeship at ArcelorMittal. Arriving at my first full-time in the middle of Flanders, full-time job in the middle of Flanders, felt like being dropped onto another planet. I didn't speak Dutch, I stood out ethnically, and I felt like an outsider in way more ways than one. I remember walking into the cafeteria the first day of work, and I thought to myself, where am I? How in the world did I end up here? The language, the people. Come on. The language, the people, and the food all felt foreign to me. Funny enough, I discovered immediately the reality of corporate culture shock. Who knew my greatest obstacle would be eating a brochure every day for lunch? It was horrible, and I still don't like it. 6 months into this journey, I started to realize I was not going to meet the expectations of my traineeship. Everything felt the same. I was not enjoying my time, I was not connecting with the people, and I felt like I was utterly lost here. But because I had conquered so many new contexts, I thought to myself, what could really go wrong here? What could really go wrong here? And with that, I made no major adjustments at that moment. 6 months later, So now a year in, Ormit and Arcelor approached me bluntly. If I did not meet certain expectations, they would proceed to end the traineeship. This was the infamous alarm procedure. It was a final chance and a warning. It was a crisis moment for me, sad, vulnerable. And I remember feeling utterly lost and questioning everything. How could I have put myself in this situation? I was no stranger to failure, but I was a stranger to this type of failure. I was hit with the real reality check. Now, before we continue, I would like to explain to everybody the clever Oberg's cultural adaptation model. Oberg was an anthropologist from the 1950s, and he described the emotional stages of cultural adaptation. First, you have the honeymoon phase. In this phase, everything new feels fascinating and like a new adventure. Eventually, you reach the crisis stage. In the crisis stage, all these new misunderstandings or new social norms manifest as frustrations, homesickness, and as you guys all know the word, culture shock. Eventually, you start connecting with the people, and you reach the recovery stage. And this stage, this new context, now feels like the new normal. And ultimately, you'll reach the mastery stage. And by the mastery stage, this place, new context, new job, new environment, new friend group, feels like a second home. Now that you all know the emotional stages of cultural leadership, of cultural adaptation, let's jump back to the gloomy day of the alarm procedure. As I went back home that day, depressed, I reflected on the reality of my situation. I was unaware of the model at the time, but it was clear I was trapped in the crisis stage. I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I seriously considered giving up. And more than anything, I was angry. Angry at the situation, angry at my coach, angry at my assignment manager, and more than anything, I was angry at myself. I was stuck, and it was a dangerous place to be. Over the next few days, I spoke candidly with my coach and my assignment manager. I came to accept the situation, and I made an important realization. The problem was not being in the crisis stage, but I had been stuck there way too long. I had let my fears, frustrations, and doubts prevent me from putting myself out there. The fear of making mistakes had made me a shell of myself. So I decided to give it one last shot. I didn't know how this would end, and I accepted that. And in the name of taking the next step that I could see, I proceeded on the journey to the recovery stage. By taking the next step I could see, I began to not feel anxious anymore trying to solve everything at once. I was able to focus and maintain a clarity and approach challenges like I had not felt before. Taking full accountability also gave me a renewed sense of purpose. I felt a deep connection between myself and my work, and I was able to connect with the people better. I even planned an intervention with my pool. I knew I was putting myself out there in a big way, and honestly, I was embarrassed. But I trusted these guys, and with their support and caring advice, it gave me that extra fire to continue pushing through. Now, only 3 months later, I had already started seeing the first fruits of my labor. Arcelor approached me to extend my traineeship contract, and it was a huge milestone, but it was only the beginning. The snowball effect had begun. Every win, every mistake, and every conversation became small victories on the road to success. I was gaining the confidence and trust of my colleagues, and my own confidence came roaring back. I had finally, and I felt for the first time, that I had found my voice. And this brings me to my favorite quote of all time by former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright. It took me quite a long time to develop a voice, but now that I have it, I am not going to be silent. And this was exactly how I felt. Going into 6 months into this journey, and it was no longer about improving myself, it was about improving the relationships I had with the people around me. And of course, my first priority being my assignment manager, Francois. We spent hours discussing, trying to bettering our communication, improving our transparency, understanding, and treating feedback as a two-way street. And within weeks, our relationship strengthened, and trust became at an all-time high. It was incredibly rewarding, and I knew at that point there was no turning back. This was what I call the recovery stage. By the time 9 months had passed, I had felt the significant impact of my efforts. I was gaining the trust, I was enjoying my time, and my work was not just valuable, but recognized. As Francois explicitly noted, my growth felt exponential. I knew now I was firmly approaching the mastery stage. And by this point, I felt like I had navigated through the storm and emerged not as a survivor, but as a leader, confident, resilient, and ready for whatever came next. My new context now felt like home. Today, I'm in the process of signing an internal contract at Arcelor, or as I like to call it, the process to drive a Tesla. And when I put all my challenges together, I realized that all of them follow this pattern. Whether it be anything small, like meeting a new friend group, or it can be indeed as big as moving to a new continent and starting a new job. It always goes from honeymoon, crisis, recovery, and ultimately to mastery. I've come to understand that adaptation, cultural or otherwise, is a process of significant leadership, resilience, and also incredible patience. The crisis stage will always exist, but how long you stay there and how you emerge from it is entirely up to you. And of course, nothing is perfect. I will never eat bread for lunch, and don't even get me started on the soups here. Now, in a moment, we've got a surprising guest appearance. Francois, the assignment manager of my story, will give a short snippet from his perspective. I want to give a massive thanks to him, as well as my coach, Yannick, for giving me the opportunities and feedback that have helped me reach the mastery stage. So, as we all reflect on our own journeys and our own struggles, I challenge you to ask yourself, what stage are you in? What is your unique voice and your unique context? Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. As mentioned by Andrew, I'm François Warichet. I'm working for ArcelorMittal since 17 years. I'm very happy to be with you here today. Some years ago, I was in my car listening to the radio, and a top manager, I think that it was even the manager of the year in Belgium, if I remember me correctly, was explaining that after years of contribution to his company, he found a quite natural steps in his career to evolve as a manager. In fact, after all those years, it was time for him to enter this new step, supporting new team members, helping them to evolve, sharing all the experience that he had built during all those years. I never forgot this story because it speaks to me. But at that time, it was not clear at all when this would happen for me. Till 1.5 years ago, this becomes reality. I was requested to become the manager of one of the supply chain components of ArcelorMittal Flat Europe product. The team is composed mostly by young talented profile who typically just finished their study. Andrew is one of them. I remember that starting in a new company is always a discovery. And I suppose you all in the room can confirm that it's something special. New people, new context, new rhythm after the studies. It's also quite difficult to know up front if when you start, if this will fit your expectation or not. I was ready to invest a lot, knowing all that. Knowing all that, and as a manager knowing all that, I was really concerned by the fact that those are key steps in a career and in your life. I was ready to invest a lot of time in each of the members of the team to make them shine as soon as possible. I quickly discovered that the challenge was that the recipe to reach this objective was not so obvious, of course. I have learned that giving enough room to each team member was so crucial to reach this objective. My deepest conviction has always been that if you as a team manager are convinced that a team member will find his way, that in the end, this will happen. But of course, at some point, doubts start to come. I have seen how important it was to formally communicate this in a clear and open way to the team member. Doing this and providing even more support has made things move and evolve a lot. All this also has allowed me to grow in my current role. My main message for today is that if you as a manager are convinced that a team member will find his way, that you could be very surprised in the end how this team member will shine. All this is possible by showing trust, giving trust, expressing clearly your expectation and your doubts to the team member, such that they can evolve to their full potential.